Welcome to the Bold Lounge podcast. My name is Lee Burgess, and I will be your host. If you're anything like me, you love hearing inspiring stories of people who have gone on bold journeys and made a positive impact in the world. This podcast is all about those kinds of stories. Every week, we'll hear from someone who has taken a leap or embarked on an extraordinary journey. In addition to hearing their stories, we'll also learn about their bold growth mindset that they use to make things happen. Whether they faced challenges or doubts along the way, they persisted and ultimately achieved their goals. These impactful stories will leave you feeling motivated and inspired to pursue your own bold journey. I believe everyone has a bold story waiting to be freed. Tune in and get ready to be inspired. Welcome to the Bold Lounge. Today I have Erika Roegies. She is the founder and general advisor of Actionable Advisors. Welcome, Erika.
Thank you, Lee. Really happy to be here today.
So I'm excited to jump into your bold definition and wonder what bold looks like to Erika. What's your definition?
So my definition is really to dare to disrupt yourself, to be brave enough to possibly acknowledge that maybe you've been ticking some boxes along your journey and to step away from that, to potentially redefine and find that true alignment. So it's really about disrupting yourself and taking a bold move to change and find what truly is meaningful and purposeful for yourself.
Yeah, I'm loving several of the words you said in there. So one, you're the first person I think that used the word disruption in their definition. And what I love about that is boldness can feel disruptive, which may be negative to someone or may feel negative. But it's actually what I think you mean by that is something needs to be different. Something needs to potentially change or get enhanced or elevate or kind of go to the next level. Is that what you mean by disrupt?
Entirely. Okay. I tend to use rattle your own cage.
Okay.
Like shake it up, assess it, reflect, and feel brave, feel bold to see that maybe it's not all what you thought it would be. And maybe it's not all aligned to your values or to your emotions or to where you want to be intellectually. It's all about rattling your cage and disrupting it.
Yeah. The other word you used in there is alignment. And how, when someone feels out of alignment, some people use the word balance. That's to me just something they'll never have. So I use alignment because you can get realigned and go out of line and come back. And I guess you can do the same thing with balance. But I guess for me, like balance will never be achieved. So alignment's just a better word to use. So I love that you use that. And then in the sense of that, what does alignment look like for you? What does that mean?
And I agree, by the way, with you. I've searched for balance for such a long time, and I've actually come to terms with the fact that, you know what, you'll reach it, you'll feel it for a split second, and then you'll be out of balance again.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, because you're not finding yourself out of balance, you're not growing. And it's why I moved in my head and in my speech more to the word alignment, where it's all about creating an environment for yourself that ties more to your inner values and your norms. And that could be the people you surround yourself with, the things you do. It could go as far as, and it does for me, how you feed yourself and how you nurture yourself, your body as a system, etc. So yeah, alignment is my new word, and it works much for me.
Yeah, it kind of does. And in my head too, like I'm a fixer, and I bet there's pieces of that in you too. Of I can fix alignment. I'm not sure I can fix balance. And and it may be momentarily, like I think I've come to that. Just my senses in the sense of alignment might be temporary for a bit, but feeling aligned to your values, your mission, your purpose. That is what I'm living, and that I don't think I've felt that before now. And when you get there and you kind of lock in to that, it's just this energy. It's almost like a boost. And, for me, that's what I also associate with alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. In many ways, there's almost a level of control you can exert over alignment, whereas balance, it's hard. It's
Yeah,
harder.
that's true. I never thought about that, but that's true. And I like to, as much as I can, I'll just put this in air quotes for everyone listening, is be in control, like as much as I possibly can. But I realize too now, I think as I get older, there's lots I'm not in control of. And so that's been a big learning for me too, I think, throughout my career and throughout my life, of just like stop trying to control things that literally I just can't.
Let it go.
Let it go. Yeah. So when was the first time, based on your definition of disrupting yourself, rattling your own cage, getting into alignment, acknowledging that you're not just meant to tick boxes? What's one of those moments you remember?
For good or bad, fairly late. I think I was 36, living in the Netherlands, because I'm Belgian. So I moved from Belgium to the Netherlands. I wouldn't call that a huge bold move because it's a 2-hour drive. I'm quoting my 36-year-old bold move, which was the shift from the Netherlands to the US, where I basically decided, and this was, I want to think, 2012. I just decided that it was time to disrupt myself. I was really comfortable in the Netherlands. I had a good job at TomTom, loved my colleagues, but had been there for 6-7 years and had a terrible commute, by the way, between The Hague and Amsterdam. So I did want to change that. I had a beautiful home. I had a great social circle, but it wasn't all okay. There was something missing and I didn't know what it was. And the only way to figure it out is to shake the cage, to rattle the cage. And it was it was a really weird moment. I went on a holiday to Portugal on my own, kind of a yoga surf retreat. And I don't know, there was a moment there where I had this epiphany of, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go somewhere else, completely change my environment and explore more, feel more, see more. And I thought it would take me a really long time because kind of a big deal to pick yourself up and shift the continent. I will say I intentionally decided on the US because I speak English and I thought, well, that'll be easy. That'll be easy. Same Western culture. I found out that was not the case. I thought this is going to be a journey on its own, just the finding a new opportunity work-wise, an approach to actually moving there, a vehicle, if you will, is going to take me a while. And it didn't. It was like 4 or 5 months. And I found an opportunity. And another 5 months later, I started the new job. And 4 months later, I found myself in Toronto as a first step towards the US. They placed me first in Canada. So yeah, it was very, very interesting, the whole how it came to me and then how it all happened. But I was super zen about it. That was also the interesting reflection, because I wouldn't have called myself a very zen person up to that point, to be honest.
You would not have called yourself zen now? So what's it feel like? What's it feel like? What are the signs and symptoms of knowing I need to rattle my own cage? I need to disrupt myself.
I think that everything feels too comfortable.
Okay.
Like that the challenges are gone, that everything feels calendarized, that
like very routine
based, not a lot of learning, whether or not that's learning in terms of meeting new people, learning on the job, learning through travel. It just feels everything's very monotonous.
Like bored, maybe? Is it a feeling of boredom? It's like complacency, comfort. And comfort's not always a bad thing, right? But sometimes if comfort at the cost of not learning or growing, I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, because complacency has a connotation of intentionality.
Yeah.
I think what I'm trying to express is a notion where you find yourself in a situation that actually you didn't necessarily intend to land. Yes, at the age of 36, maybe I should add, I was single. Most of my friends were married or getting married, having babies. So there's a lot in those journeys. There's a lot happening and there's a lot of change and there's a lot of new things in your life that you're getting adjusted to. And for me, that everything was very static and stable and comfortable. Again, comfortable. Mm-hmm. That's, I guess, why it needed to be disrupted a bit, so I could create opportunity, almost create opportunity, let the universe throw some things at me that I hadn't planned for. And that's maybe what I mean when I say I wouldn't have called myself a Zen person before that, because maybe I found myself in that place because I was a planner and I like to have things under control.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people, right? If I think about my analogy kind of in my world would be, you're in a career, you're doing well, you're working hard, you're going to the next level, you're, making sure, you're with your friends and your family doing those things. And you kind of get into a routine of like, this is what I want to do. I think also there becomes a point where like, is this really it? Is this the rest of my life? Is this kind of how it's going to be? Is this kind of my, my schedule and those types of things? And, at the very beginning, you talked about ticking the boxes, right? So I think sometimes as you get older, you realize that the boxes you're ticking aren't your own, at least for me, and again, nothing negative about whose boxes they were, but they weren't mine. And I think I wanted to claim some of those boxes or maybe pencil some in. And I think it was like giving into the exploration. Like when you went on the yoga surf retreat, it was like, I need just a mental break from whatever I've been doing to let my mind actually think or even be open and be able to think about the things that are possible. And and it wasn't like you were going like, I'm going to go make a list of all the options of what I could do. It was like, I'm just going to take a break, right? For a moment. And sometimes when we let our bodies and our brains kind of just have a moment of freedom to explore, that's where some of, I think the disruption can come from, because it's like, okay, maybe you should try this. And then you have this idea or the thought. And so you ended up going from the Netherlands to Toronto. And then what did you do there? Like, what was it that you were going there to explore? Was it a different role? Was it obviously a different country?
Yeah, so I started working in a new role for a company, education company, and really they put me in Toronto first because quite simply it was easier to get work permits. And so I moved to Toronto, didn't know anybody there. It was going to be really short. It ended up being a full year. It was actually quite boundary breaking because I was there all on my own. All my colleagues were in the US. I basically did the COVID Zoom thing for over a year while building an organization, while driving major digital transformation in the organization. It was pretty challenging and very intense. So I explored a lot, mainly from a professional perspective, relationship building. However, again, in a professional setting, I can't say that I spent the time in Toronto to truly explore a new society or a new social environment, because it was going to be temporary. And I really had my set on the next step, which was moving to Boston and getting settled in the US.
Okay. What did you learn? It sounded like you had your head down with the business and getting things done, and you were the one like driving a lot. You even use that word. What did you learn about yourself in that? Because that's a big move. It's also, it sounds like potentially pressure or focus that's very heightened. And what did you learn about yourself in that year?
Well, I guess it sounds a little bit arrogant, I find, but that I do have boundaries. I can push myself so very hard, and I hadn't really found those yet, to be honest. The work I was doing had to be very holistic because we were making a lot of changes, and I was brought in to drive those changes. It was operating model, it was culture, it was building capabilities, both from a people skills perspective as well as new processes, systems, etc. So it meant talking to a lot of people. It meant putting a lot of effort in change management and building those relationships that enable you to manage that change, to bring people along, and all of that remote. So I was on the phone nonstop from early in the morning until late in the evening, because we covered a very wide time zone, and a lot initially in one-on-ones. So again, building all of those relationships, eventually more team settings and team building. But so I am naturally more of an introvert. So spending so much time with people and talking and I was exhausted.
A lot of energy. No, I get it. I can relate.
And introverts, as I'm sure you know, we have to recharge in a small social setting, and, with some friends, etc. And of course, I had let all of that go. And I wasn't really investing, not in Canada, on rebuilding that. So it was really hard to recharge, which is why I think it felt exhausting. I hadn't built the balance to be able to long-term do that remotely. And luckily it wasn't a long-term thing, so it was fine. But learning that you need to kind of cover all those bases, not just put all that energy in the professional environment where it was really necessary, but actually make sure you've put some energy in your recharging tools, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think people realizing that a few things from just this first leg of your discovery and exploration and your boldness was, some things take time and some things are iterative learning process, like learning our boundaries, learning our limits, learning that, our energy can't be 100% on one thing and we're expecting we're going to have anything left in the tank for anything else. Also understanding how we feed ourselves, like with friends and family and quiet time and exploration, like that's not related to our work. I think sometimes I know I was so out of alignment when in 2020, and it can hurt you, like it can physically hurt you health wise, it can mentally, emotionally. So like you realizing that, and being able to retrospectively look back at it too, I think is helpful just for people to realize that, oh, I'm going to go be bold, or I'm going to go do this. Like there's a lot of like trial and error in there. And there's just an understanding that some things take time, where we live in a world where I think people want things instantly. They want success today. They want, like if they're going to build a company or create a company like you have and I have, I want to be this tomorrow. And it's like, I think I've learned more and more too that patience is a really good muscle, and I've got to work that one out because I don't have very much. So listen to Erika and her story. Like she's not saying like, and then I was, a millionaire and living in the US and doing this or that.
No,
not yet.
Yes.
Yeah. So from Toronto, you went to Boston, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me how that went. And then what you were in this phase of the leg of the bold journey, like what was the primary learning that you had?
So really the covering of all bases, and having not done that was a really important lesson, I think. And as I moved to Boston, that was really my initial focus, to try and look for that balance, because I was totally still into looking for balance, having the bases between work life, private life, yourself and your quiet time covered a bit more equally was my primary focus. So settling, having a home. When I went to Boston, all my stuff from Europe had been packed up. So I did take everything. I literally picked everything up, and with the help of the organization, shifted everything to the US. So I was really fortunate that I could do that. I didn't start entirely from scratch. And when I landed in Boston, that could finally come to me. I rented a home, and I could refound myself, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kind of put some roots down a little bit. Yeah. Like feel like a little bit more rooted. Because even when you talk about Toronto, like you knew that was temporary.
Yes.
And you didn't want to even make or use the energy to make friends that you might not keep or keep in touch with those things. But now you could kind of start to do some of those things.
Yes. Yeah. Which, by the way, in hindsight, was silly, right? I should have put that effort in Toronto, because why not?
Yeah. People travel. People
exactly. I think it was just my mindset at the time that I was
focused,
and I was focused on building the things at work rather than building my things. And again, indeed, as I came to Boston, that was different. It was a little bit more spread out, and I could find those moments of recharging myself a little bit. Because the thing with disrupting yourself the way I did, I guess I underestimated the energy drain, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's always energy drain, and energy drain is not a bad thing. It sounds bad, but it's not a bad thing. You just got to make sure you have ways of recharging yourself. And that was a primary focus in Boston. And for me, at that time, it was very much through my home. Again, it sounds a little silly because I'm not necessarily all about stuff and material things, but just getting my old stuff back, unpacking all those boxes. Oh, that was Christmas. Like,
yeah, I bet.
I'm done. And that's from there. And because I have so many old things from my grandmother or my grandfather, and I brought everything. So it was just really nice because I guess I rediscovered a lot of my backstory a bit. And when I made a decision to move, there was something there of, am I running away from my backstory? Was it not good enough? Refining it made me feel like, oh no, it was all really good. I'm just going to do something slightly different, and I'm going to new environment and open myself up to new people and new experiences. So it even made me digest my whole disruption a little bit landing in Boston. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you look at it from a different lens, right? So like when you were exploring initially, it was, I want to explore, I want something to be different. I want some disruption. Not sure why I want it so bad or why I want it now, right? And it's like, okay, got through Canada and here I am now in Boston. And now I'm reconnecting, reconnection really and acknowledging who you are, what made you up, your history, all the people that are pieces and parts of you. And realizing there's good and there's not so good, I'm sure, in everyone's journey of things they've learned or experiences they had, but they're all still part of us. And I think we also begin to say, okay, I'm going to keep that part. I'm going to let that one go. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to thank it for whatever it's given me in learning, and then I'm going to let it go. Kind of Marie Kondo, your like memories and thoughts, right? You're going to thank it and then you're going to donate it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, like parts of your mindset there. So I love that. And like just also, I think that feeling of home and like just comfort, again, just kind of getting a little bit more of that, because you went from one, I'm super comfortable on kind of where I am, to this is way out of the comfort zone. Maybe there's a middle ground, right? And then, that's kind of what you were reestablishing there. As you kind of work through that and the understanding of that, were there things that were harder than easier with regard to that, of just kind of settling in? Or was it more so just, this is actually feeling like this has been the right thing to do?
It definitely felt like the right thing to do. I mean, were there things harder or easier? I think at that point, I was 13 months into my journey, or 13, 14 months. And I was learning how the Western culture isn't one big blob, how actually the Netherlands, Belgium, Western, everybody speaks fluent English, is very, very different. Things are done in a very different way. Simple things like customer service or going out for dinner, or, it sounds all really simple, but when you're then in it is where I had surprises and where I thought, oh my, this is way different. This is either slower or faster or more pleasant, nicer, or more raw, more rough. There was learning around that, but nothing to the point that I thought, oh, I made a mistake. Nothing to the point, more different.
Yeah. So I think a good point here, just from your journey, is all learning doesn't feel good. It just, like you said, you said it so eloquently and nicely, like nicer and then rougher, right? So things weren't as easy and not hard. It was a little rougher than I thought, or not as straightforward, or not as in the sense of, I thought it would be worse, but it was actually better. Yeah. So I think there's learning in that. And I think that's part of being bold too, is you're exploring, but at the same time, you're going to learn some things. It's that growth mindset piece to how we think of, I'm going to learn if things don't go well, or I'm going to try something new, or meet someone, or go somewhere. Because there's a lot of things, not only from just what you're doing in your role, your professional role, but you're also making friends and exploring a new city. And it's a lot all at one time.
Yeah.
And any part of that can make anyone anxious or have, just nervousness, or just maybe at times, even though you're in a big city, feel very alone, So I think that's just something for people to hear too, is like, but what you did is you just kept going.
Yes.
You didn't stop.
Yeah.
You didn't go, okay, I'm going back, or I'm quitting, or, because I'm sure some of those moments, those rough moments, were rough.
I still see myself at one point sitting on a sofa that I had ordered, and it just arrived. It was one of the only pieces of furniture I had. And I just started crying. Like I had this huge release of emotion of, I think, 14 months of journey. And yeah, like I said, good, bad. It wasn't that the crying was a bad thing. It's again, crying always sounds sad, but for me, it's an emotional release. It's a way of just letting something go. And yeah, I remember sitting there. It was dark outside. I had a lot of windows in this apartment, and I was just staring out the lamps on the street. And I had this release and with satisfaction. It was a really weird feeling, that looked like sadness, but I had satisfaction at the same time. It was super interesting. And I guess that's what I was looking for, like feeling that level of intensity, or how do you say that? Like really intense feeling about a thing you did to yourself. This wasn't done to me, right? I did that.
Yeah, you took control of the situation, but it doesn't mean that there isn't emotion in the journey. And crying actually is a release, and actually is very healthy for you to do, because it releases certain chemicals in your brain and kind of, also tells your brain it's okay. You don't have to kind of keep replaying something or thinking about something. Like, it literally is physically a release of energy. And there's probably a lot that could have been boiling up or getting into, all of the things that you had done. It was just a healthy thing to do, but memorable, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little about your company, Apney, and tell us a little about what you do in Boston to where you are now. Fill us in on that last leg to Apney.
So fast forward, I was in Boston for 4 or 5 years. Actually met my husband there, got married, and then in 2018 we moved here to the New York metropolitan area for another opportunity. However, that ended in 22. So I found myself again in a situation of looking for, well, what's next? I have been doing really in many ways the same thing for the last 9 years in terms of my contributions to an organization. And I thought, I don't really want to do that anymore. I want to do something else. I want to have a bigger impact, quite frankly. So how do I do that? And it took me probably 4 or 5 months to realize that the path for me would be to do it as an owner of a company, as an owner of a firm. Now, I thought about this a couple of times in the past, but I was never really ready. When you have an idea in your head, but it's just not the right time. You're not going to pursue it because time is great, and whether or not that's because you don't feel strong enough knowledge-wise or the circumstances aren't right. Either way, it felt right this time to start my own firm, Apney Advisors.
When you started that process, what did you want to do with the business that was different? What was the message and the mission of your business that was going to be different than other ones? What sets you apart?
So maybe I should share a little bit about Apney Advisors. Our focus is on helping CEOs and their executive teams build their operating backbone, their operational infrastructure that basically enables their strategy and value offering. We're focused on early to mid-stage organizations because we'd really like to work more and more on building awareness that you need to do this early on. We want to build rather than fix. I have done many transformations and optimizations. We can do that again for larger organizations, but we're focused on smaller organizations to make sure they don't make those mistakes. We want to help them avoid the pitfalls of not having your operation sorted, of building out basically insane inefficiencies because you didn't think about the more holistic system you're looking to build, because an organization is a system and you need to really think about all components in the system, including your operations. So because we have a long career as executives, we feel we have seen a lot of different scenarios. We have cover the spectrum of what operations mean in an organization, from customer service to finance ops to sales operations to product delivery and development, digital technology management. So we cover a fairly big base. And again, have seen a lot of the pain points that organizations unknowingly create for themselves that become impediments and that then slows them down. We're here to avoid that for teams, help them build it out before they slow down.
Right. So kind of be the lookout for a company and also be able to share like where there may be a bump ahead based on your experience, so they don't have to experience it. Or maybe if they do, they can quickly rebound from it faster than if they wouldn't have you and your team.
Correct. And then grow faster, because it's ultimately all about growing your organization and reaching your goals, your customer goals, your financial goals, the various goals you've set as part of your strategic plan, and do that at speed.
Yeah. So have another strategist, kind of, I call it like the strategist in your back pocket, right? So if they have the ability to have years of knowledge and understanding and applied expertise at their ready.
Exactly.
And so that's wonderful for any company to have. One of the things you talked about was transformation and optimization, the things that you do, and the holistic approach to the systems within a business. When you think about your learnings and all the things that, from the Netherlands to New York, maybe that's a book.
Who knows?
But, what did you learn from a transformation, optimization, and holistic approach to how you live? And then now apply it to some of the things that you do with companies to help them. Like, are there any things that come to mind and key learnings, like knowing this really amplified, or going through that really helped me understand how to apply certain things to people, processes, and myself along the way?
Yeah, I would summarize my answer to that kind of question in just the word systems thinking.
Okay.
I'm a huge systems thinker, whether or not that is your environment, whether or not that actually is your system with the outcome of health, whether or not that's an organization. I apply that to everything by now. I'm actually quite pedantic as it pertains to my own system. But yes, the notion of systems thinking applied to our business means that we're connectors. We will not come in and just look at your customer service or experience or just your product development process. Everything's connected. And while we might not be engaged to fix it all, we will be touching on those things and make recommendations to make sure that an organization connects the dots, either with our help or themselves. It's super important to, as an executive team, manage your organization as a system, in my view.
Yeah. And I think the analogy there is also, I think listeners understand that they're in their own system, right? If you're feeling out of alignment or feeling like something, and that doesn't have to be a bad thing either. Like, it could just be like, man, I just want to explore. I want to try something new. Like, why am I not doing that? Well, what's that connected to? What's that feeling connected to? Why is that coming up? And like, the unpacking of that, I think, is really important in your own system of how you're living your life system of, what's connected to your happiness, your joy, your goals. And so I think applying that to your personal life, as well as when you're working within an organization, or like in your case, coming into looking at the different things within an organization. I always call it like the leaks right here in the ceiling, but actually maybe the pipe over there is the problem. If you can't see the pipe, you only see the leak, right? So I think realizing that you come in and you really look at challenges or things that are happening with organizations holistically, because the solution is also holistic,
yes,
personally and professionally. So I think that's a really cool way to approach businesses and our lives, and exciting to see what you're doing. So as we kind of close out, just a question for you, for someone that's just feeling out of alignment. What's your guidance to them? What would be the first thing they should do, or maybe think about? Because being bold isn't always an action. Sometimes just thinking and sitting and journaling, that's bold.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I would say the first thing to do is step back, to be honest. Actually, what you just said, it's the first step to do, because it enables actually yourself to look at the bigger picture, the bigger system, and to find what defines alignment for you. Therefore, what to look for, where to go. Again, applying systems thinking. When you look at the whole, you know what locals to optimize, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, you'll optimize your whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stepping back is the first thing to do when alignment isn't there. Like I mentioned, it took me 4 or 5 months last year to really think through what finding alignment would mean for me, how I would enact that, how it would materialize. You got to take time. That's the other thing. So the patience we talked about earlier, absolutely key. Allow for it to be a journey. Don't feel like you need to have the answer immediately and start acting. Give yourself the time, give yourself the thinking space, and form a plan from there, but by looking at the whole.
Yeah. Looking at the whole, thinking about the systems and the connections. And I think realizing, like you said, that being bold can be the first step is actually very quiet.
Yes.
And what I mean by that, it's thoughtful. It's maybe you're refilling your own cup, like if it's empty, and thinking about your definitions of what you want to do, your definition of bold, because everyone is different, and getting that courage, which is sometimes a whisper, right? It's just maybe try this out. And so I think you are really a great example of some really loud, bold moves, right? Like moving, and then some really quiet, bold moves. And they're all important. And they've all led you to exactly where you are today, which is where you're meant to be. So thank you so much for being on the Bold Lounge and for being part of this. All the information about Erika and the business Affinity Advisors is below in the episode notes. Please check them out. Thank you so much, Erika.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Bold Lounge podcast. Through the continuum of bold stories, vulnerability to taking a leap, you will meet more extraordinary people making a positive impact for others through their unique and important story. By highlighting these stories, we hope to inspire others and share the journey of those with a bold mindset. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast and look forward to sharing the next bold journey with you.